Schiehallion. Sounds more like a war cry than the name of a mountain, but in summer conditions the ascent is pretty straightforward. But in winter it's a completely different proposition. Schiehalion's isolated position attracts some pretty strong winds, and in snowy conditions the going can get pretty rough. Most walkers start from the Braes of Foss car park on the Kinlochrannoch Road. The mountain's owned by the John Muir Trust, and they've developed a good footpath that climbs up onto the east ridge of the mountain. Despite its fierce-sounding name, Schiehallion actually means the fairy hill of the Caledonians. And in 1774, the astronomer royal Neville Maskelyne used the hill's conical shape to try and calculate the density of the Earth. Now, the results of that experiment showed that the Earth had a dense core and not a hollow core as had been thought. But probably more important to hill walkers was the fact that in the course of the calculations, a scientist called Charles Hutton hit upon a method of drawing lines connecting places of equal height, hence the birth of what we know today as contour lines. High above Loch Tummel and the distant Grampians, the steep east ridge begins to level out. The rough and rocky ridge climbs over a couple of subsidiary tops before the true summit comes into view. In snow-covered conditions like this, it's easy to sink down between the boulders, but I think you'll agree that the snow shapes add an Arctic feel to the place, an ethereal dimension to an already fascinating mountain.
Schiehalion's normally a fairly straightforward ascent. It's just, you've got the path onto the ridge and then up the spine of the ridge to the summit. But on a day like this in deep snow and for much of the way strong winds, it can be pretty formidable, and I must admit I feel pretty knackered.
I may well have been knackered, but I was well rewarded for my efforts with the phenomenon known as the Brocken Spectre. This halo effect happens when the sun casts your shadow onto the water droplets that form the mists below you. And it made a pretty special end to what was a pretty special day on Perthshire's Schiehallion.